It is draft season, everybody. That's right. The 2024 NFL draft is upon us. So we're hitting you with a two-parter. That's right. We're going to be talking about the top 10 draft prospects on PFF's Big Board. Part one of two. We're going to be hitting you with the top five on this episode. All that and more coming up on the house call. The top 10 of the draft is settling in, and we are going to talk about those prospects that are projected to go in the first round in those top 10 picks. We're going to be breaking down some quarterbacks, some wide receivers, a tight end, and some offensive linemen. Welcome back into the Gridiron segment. My name is Kyle. I am joined by Ricardo and Joe. We are going to be talking all things 2024 NFL draft. Before we get to that, I've got to shout out our amazing sponsor at Lids because, hey, you noticed it. This is the hat episode, people, and we got these amazing hats from one place, and that is Lids. Lids is the absolute best place to get your hats and get your sports memorabilia in general. I'm talking about jerseys. I'm talking about sweaters. If you want it, they've got it. Get yourself to Lids and use the link in our description to save yourself even more money. Thank you to Lids for sponsoring this episode. Now, we have got some really, really exciting prospects to talk about. We are going to be going through the top 10 PFF draft prospects for the 2024 NFL draft. And I'm going to throw it right to you, Joe, so you can pull that list up and we can get right into some of these prospects.
Absolutely. Let's hit it. So just, be advised, these are PFS draft order grades for the 2024 draft. They're going to go on measurables over the last 3 years, rank them on that, as well as I'll be updating as soon as the 2024 combine is in the books, which will be starting this coming week. So if you find yourself around Indianapolis, I highly recommend going and checking out all combine festivities. They're always fun, always good to be there. So without any further ado, though, let's go ahead and pop up the draft board, and we're going to start right at the top. That's Caleb Williams. Now, he's obviously 22 years of age, 6'1", 215. This is the highest graded quarterback we have in this draft right now. Regardless of what big board you're looking at, he is always at number one. And it's easy to see why. You bring up his draft guide profile here on PFF. He's been consistently rated as a 91, 90 or higher over the last 3 years. He's played thrown the ball very well. He had 4,500 yards the year before where he won the Heisman. This year, those numbers went down a little bit, but it was due to a lackluster offensive line, not really having the weapons. Brendan Rice is his top wide receiver. He's looking to go somewhere in the second to third round at this point. Caleb Williams, the big numbers here, the 2023 stats kind of speak for themselves. Adjusted completion percentage is 77.5%. That puts him roughly at 16th. Average depth of target, 9.2, 87th. Big time throws, 6.2, tied at 28th. Turnover worthy plays, 3.6% of the time he threw the ball. It was a turnover worthy play. That's 96. He had the fifth most deep yards in this class this year, as well as he's 10th in screen yards. Drop rate was 3.9%. So that tells you that, his wide receivers drop the ball about 3.9% of the time. Pressure to sack conversion rate, that speaks to his offensive line a little bit there. You'll see some of the other quarterbacks in this draft that kind of goes up and down, but a lot of the guys who are mobile play behind poor offensive lines. They're all somewhere in the high teens to low 20s. Average time to throw is actually one of the highest in this draft, especially through the top 10 quarterbacks. Every other quarterback that I've looked at has a sub 3. He's the one who has over a 3 second, which is really, really not good. As you can see, these ranked QBs with 300 plus dropbacks. So 165th, that's a lot of time to throw. And I think that speaks to a little bit of who Caleb Williams is as a player, extending plays, finding extra time for those downfield routes to develop. And I think, if you look at some of the other guys, it kind of sticks that way as well. So, big news here is, completion percentage was good, 68% adjusted, 77.5, 30 touchdowns, 5 INTs, and a passer rating of 117.4. All in all, Caleb Williams is exactly what you want to have in a quarterback prospect. And he's got the tools, he's mobile, he's got an arm, he can make all the throws, decision-making, anticipation, all the sorts of things that you're hoping that he can grow into a little bit. But at this moment, there's no way Caleb Williams is not the number one overall pick in my book. I think that whether he goes to the Bears or whether the Bears trade out of the one spot, Caleb Williams is going to be drafted number one. And if he's not, we'll get into that a little bit later, but it would really shake things up because at that point, everyone's boards go out the window. I think that the minute you don't have Caleb Williams there, it's really going to throw some things in there. But I'll go ahead and kick it back to you, Kyle. This is the guy. This guy's been projected to go to your team pretty regularly. So, what are your thoughts on Caleb Williams?
Man, absolutely everyone at this point is sold on the fact that Caleb Williams is going to the Chicago Bears. I'm not completely sold on it. I don't necessarily love the fit. That's just me. Speaking to Caleb Williams, the player, phenomenal talent. One of the most talented quarterback prospects we've seen since Trevor Lawrence, since an Andrew Luck. Like this is what we're talking about when we say generational type talent, because he does have that level of talent. Now, whether or not that translates to the next level, that remains to be seen. And I'm really glad that you brought up the time to throw, because that has always been such a big critique of Justin Fields, who's the Bears' current quarterback. He has a very long time to throw stat. He had a lower time to throw this past NFL season than Caleb Williams did in college. Now, yes, a lot of that comes from Caleb Williams, like you said, trying to extend the play, trying to improvise a little bit, see if he can open up anything downfield. That is really, really hard to do at the NFL level. Like, these corners are not, you're not facing Pac-10 corners anymore, Pac-12, whatever it is. They're getting rid of the damn thing anyways. Who cares? These corners in the NFL aren't going to be letting you do your, backyard shenanigans, hero ball stuff that easily. Like, there is one Patrick Mahomes for a reason. Like, I understand, yes, we can talk all about the talent. It is so different to just see how it plays out in the NFL. And assuming he goes to the Bears, like you said, played behind a very poor offensive line at the University of Southern California. The Bears don't have a very good offensive line. Like, I hate to break it to you, if you're going first overall, probably not the best situation. And we saw in 2023 at USC that Caleb Williams did not necessarily elevate those lesser pieces that he had on offense, like Patrick Mahomes did with the lesser pieces he had at wide receiver, and still won the damn Super Bowl. So I think we do need to pump the brakes a little bit about Caleb Williams being this surefire slam dunk thing. But in the same breath, he is phenomenal. If he goes to the right situation, he's going to be very good for a very long time. Do not get it twisted. I just don't know if Chicago's the right place to go to be very good for Caleb Williams. We have a tendency to ruin these guys. I'm sorry. It's just the way that it is.
I mean, you're absolutely right. When we talk about quarterbacks, we very rarely talk about the fit, right? We scrutinize quarterbacks who don't live up to their lofty expectations, and then we praise these guys who end up in perfect situations. I mean, let's be fair here. Tom Brady ended up in a great situation, right? He had a top 10 defense, a lot of really solid, smart route runners. I mean, granted, a lot of the people who are like, oh, well, he didn't really throw to anybody. Yeah, but he had a great offensive line, solid running backs. In his first couple of years, allowed him to get his feet under himself, and then he took off. Patrick Mahomes went into a playoff team. He inherited a playoff team. Like, that's what happened. And you talk about some of these guys, like, even Justin Herbert, when he stepped into the Chargers, that was a good offense. It was not a bad team.
No, not at all.
And he's been very well. I mean, the only one who you could realistically say has kind of built himself up from nothing would be, Josh Allen. And there was really nothing there. He was the guy. And, we kind of saw how his completion percentage, which was a question coming out and stuff like that. But I mean, the fit is always the biggest problem. And it's kind of why I hate seeing bad teams take quarterbacks in the first round, because you're not helping. This draft may be the first draft in a very long time where you can get enough help for a first round quarterback to actually be viable. But in most situations, you're not a quarterback away. If you're drafted in the top 10, you're not. And I feel like teams like the Bears, who have been drafting pretty well as of late.
Ryan
you look
Poles
at how
has done a good job.
Yeah, you look at how
those secondary picks that he has made. Tyreek Stevenson has been unbelievable. Kyler Gordon was a top 5 slot corner all year. Jaquan Brisker is doing some amazing things. Like, Ryan Poles has drafted very, very well.
Look at the Lions, right? The Lions could have gotten a quarterback. They have now, instead of that, they have drafted offensive weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a steal. You're right. They got Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then they traded for Jared Goff, who just took them to the NFC Championship game, and probably could have won that if they had been a little bit better on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's the difference between bad teams and good teams. is that bad teams will remain bad because they continue to reach for quarterbacks in the first round and have no support system for them. And good teams and good organizations will build first and then find the guy that works with that system and can manage that system well. And it's not always in the draft. But I mean, Ricky, I want to go to you on this one, man. Like your Raiders are in a similar situation, except for you guys have a decent defense. You have offensive weapons, and you're looking for a quarterback now. And Caleb Williams, don't get me wrong, Caleb Williams in a Raider jersey looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I have a couple edits screenshotted. I'm trying to manifest something wild.
right.
Hey, you know my price. Multiple firsts and Max Crosby.
Max Crosby's untouchable, my friend. He ain't going nowhere.
But it would make sense because the Raiders have a solid wide receiver core. Their tight end spot kind of went downhill a little bit because that's what happens when you trade a talent like they did. But they have defense, they have offense. That is a place where a quarterback in the first round makes sense because you can get someone with an exceptional talent to fit there. So, I mean, give me your opinion on Caleb Williams and what would the Raiders be a better fit than the Bears in your opinion? I mean, I know as a fan of the Raiders, you're like, absolutely.
Absolutely, man.
But I mean, like, this is the kind of move that.
I say absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's the kind of fit that you're looking for. Solid core. You have a top 10 running back, right? The guy who won the rushing title year before last.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
And is, that's what we're talking about here. That's a team that gets a guy like Caleb Williams and is successful. Especially with Antonio Pierce down there calling the run the team right now as the head coach. Like, that guy is out for blood. I mean, the Mahomes rules, I love that. But go ahead and give me your opinion on Caleb Williams, man. And do you feel he's the surefire number one pick?
Yeah, I mean, I've to be honest with you, I hate to be that guy that goes so far back, but the very first time I saw Caleb Williams, I was actually watching that Red River rivalry game with Oklahoma and Texas, where he came in at halftime for Spencer Rattler, and you could just see right out the gates. I remember watching that game, and I remember I even did a little live bet on Oklahoma when I saw him come in. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? But anyway, I mean, the guy is just electric. He can make every throw in the book. He can extend plays, and isn't that what we want in our quarterbacks these days? Aren't we kind of past the days of these kind of non-mobile quarterbacks and all that stuff? And I guess my question is I do believe he is a surefire number one. My question is like, what for a Bears fan? I guess my question, Kyle, is what's not to like about him? What's not to pull the trigger on? Is it the emotional attachment to Justin Fields?
Oh,
like, don't you?
Absolutely.
Because I mean, think about you're an organization that drafted Mitch Trubisky over Deshaun Watson, over Patrick Mahomes. You made the move for Fields, but then again, I mean, he was kind of a question mark even last year. And then you guys passed up on a CJ Stroud technically because you traded away your pick to the Panthers. So I mean, like, this is an organization that has passed up on guys over and over and over again. And like, how many times can you do that? Can you pass on these guys that are generational freaking talents, to stick with a guy who has some there's still question marks out, on Justin Fields. Has he reached his ceiling? Or was last year, was it on Luke Getsy? Was it on Fields? Was it? I guess the Raiders are going to find that out, right? We're going to find out because we just happen to stumble upon Luke Getsy. Just like we kind of had to.
He was one of the Walmart greeters in and around Las Vegas. So maybe.
Was it like Idiocracy? Welcome to Costco. I love you. Welcome to Costco. I love you.
I mean, I get it, guys. Of course, there's holes to be filled, on every single team. But think of these game-changing quarterbacks like a CJ Stroud and what he has done. Couldn't the Texans have said, "Hey, man, we got tons of other holes to fill. Let's go ahead and pass up on this guy," or even the Bengals with Joe Burrow. You know, these are surefire guys that you just like. These are franchise game changers, you know. And I think it's time that the Bears. I think it's time that the Bears do it. You know, they pull that trigger. I'm sorry, Kyle.
No,
I think
don't
the
be.
writing's
And like,
really.
no, you're good. And like the thing that with me is he won't necessarily be he won't be shocked by a bad offensive line at the very least coming from Southern Cal. The big thing for me is, you know, what happens if and when the Bears have adversity, because like even if the Bears let's go down a hypothetical and say the Bears draft like Caleb Williams at 1 and they get Aroma Dunze at 9. Even with those picks, I like those picks.
Yeah, that sounds really sexy to me, to be honest.
Ceiling, oh, definitely. But like the absolute ceiling, best case scenario, I feel like is 10 wins. And that could probably get you a wild card spot in the NFC, and then a loss. And even 10 wins, you're facing 7 losses, and you're facing 7 losses in a Chicago market. You gotta face the music a little bit. And I haven't necessarily seen a level of maturity out of Caleb Williams to handle that adversity. And if it goes wrong, especially because the Bears will find a way to make things go wrong. They always find a way to make things go wrong. But even in the best case scenario, I'm still like, this is you got to make sure you're not a diva in a Chicago media market. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, but I mean, 10 wins, I mean, is putting you right there.
But it's
you're right there in contention for the North, you know?
I mean,
let's
be fair.
Look too good.
The Bears have always had polarizing players, right? The Bears have always had polarizing players.
Jim McMahon.
Now, Jim McMahon is probably one of the most polarizing quarterbacks the Bears have ever had, and it's next level. But I'm going to be honest with you, all right? Like, I think Caleb Williams is going to go number 1. It's just going to depend on who takes him. Teams like the Vikings, teams like the Raiders, teams like the Broncos are move-up teams in my book. I think those drafting outside the top 10 but want to be in the top 10. Those are the teams I could see making a move for the 1 spot, making a move for the 2 or the 3. But we've already talked about one surefire guy. Let's talk about another surefire guy. Probably the most surefire wide receiver we have seen in the draft ever. And it makes sense if you know who his dad is, all right? Just go through on some Colts highlights and you will see Marvin Harrison run some of the most nastiest routes you've ever seen. And then you have his son, who is bigger, faster, and just as good as a route runner as his dad was.
And by the way, Ricky, this guy is another reason that I'm not totally sold on Caleb Williams, because I cannot miss out on this guy.
Yeah, you can't. And he's and a lot of people are like, why would you not get a quarterback, right? Like, there's a lot of teams, and the first 3 teams arguably have questions at quarterback. The Bears have less of a question at quarterback and less of a question at wide receiver, in my opinion. I mean, they did have a lot of drops. Marvin Harrison Jr., I believe, only had 3 drops, or was it 6? I believe it was 6 drops this year.
Absurd
6 drops this year. Still a very low number when you look at how many targets he got, right? He got 114 targets, 6 drops. That's less than 6%.
Tyler Scott could never. Robert Tonyan could never. Right. Darnell Mooney could never. These are the reasons that I'm not sold on Caleb Williams.
Right. And you think about it, and we talk about why Marvin Harrison. Some people have listed Marvin Harrison on their big board as the number 1 overall prospect because there's not a more surefire pick. This guy is like, he's being compared to AJ Green. We all know what AJ Green was. I think he's a better route runner than AJ Green is. He's just as big, has just an equal wingspan, right? He's tough, runs good routes. And some people are saying that he's the most solid route runner in the draft that we have ever seen out of college, right? He played at Ohio State, so you already know he ran just about everything in the route tree you could possibly have him run. Ohio State's one of those schools. That's what they do, right? And this guy had 1,200 yards, and everyone knew he was getting the ball. Everyone knew he was getting the football. And he had 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns.
Can't stop him.
Like, imagine walking in one day and you're like Michigan or any of these other teams, right? And they're like, just double cover Marvin Harrison Jr. and we'll win this game. And he still goes out for 1,200 yards on the year, 18.1 yards per reception, and 14 touchdowns. It's almost impossible. Yards after catch, 6.4. Average depth of target, 13.1. Deep yards, 600. Half his yards came on deep yards, 355 out of the slot, 70 on screens, right? 13 contested catches. So he does it all. He's lined up everywhere. He had 71 slot snaps and 292 wide snaps this year. The guy's next level. And if you put on his tape, in all honesty, it's one of the reasons why there are so many people that are questioning what the Bears do at 1, what the Patriots do at 3. And I think we all know that those two teams are probably, depending on what the Bears do at 1, the draft starts at 1. And I know it's like, oh, the draft always starts at 1. No, the real draft starts at 1. If the Bears draft a quarterback, then the draft doesn't start till 3. If the Bears draft Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1, everything changes.
Shit just got real.
Because now the Patriots are like, we're going to get Caleb Williams or Drake May. The Commanders are on shock because they're like, had Drake May penciled in right off the bat. They didn't think they were getting anyone else but Drake May. So now they have to change all their stuff up. And everything just gets into this wild thing happening, right? And
it's
I think
straight
that's why
up draft day with Kevin Costner.
I honestly believe that the draft there will be no trades in the top 10 picks until the day of the draft. I do not see, even with free agency coming up, I do not see a way that there is any trades in the top 10 that happen before the Bears pick at 1. After that, shit gets wild. There's going to be trades all over the place. I believe that completely because that is going to tell everyone how the draft board goes and the phones are going to be ringing off the hook. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the most surefire pick in this draft, bar none. I don't believe any other way about it. I will say this. He is probably the best wide receiver in this draft class. I think there's some wide receivers who do things better than him in certain aspects of the game, but when it comes to being a whole package, this is the whole package of the wide receiver position. And Ricardo, I'm going to start with you. This is another guy that's sort of out of reach for you guys. You don't really need him, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is a surefire thing. And this is, I project that he's going to be in the top 10 wide receivers rookie year. And I want to get you true or false. Do you think he is a top 10 wide receiver rookie year?
I don't know, guys. There's a hell of a lot of talented wide receivers in the NFL, man. To crack that top 5 is, maybe, I'm sure he'll probably be borderline top 10. But, I mean, we've seen in recent years, rookies come out the gates and absolutely firing, and it doesn't even have to be a top pick, like Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. So we have seen receivers just come in the league and just freaking wreak havoc, right out the gates. But to crack the top, 5 to 10 range, I mean, that's really, really tough. But does he have all the tools, all the potential in the world to do it? Absolutely. I got to be honest with you guys. I didn't actually realize he was 6'4". Okay, that's huge. He's huge. I actually hadn't realized that. Smooth. Yeah, I think that's because when you see him out there, he doesn't look like a 6'4" guy running routes. That's the thing. That's the thing I don't think I've ever put together. I actually another one. I've actually seen him play live at the Rose Bowl 2 years ago versus Ohio State versus Utah. So that was I saw him play, and you could definitely see him standing out. I believe he was a freshman that year. So yeah, you could just see the talent right out the gates. But is he a sure? I mean, I think the most intriguing thing to me is kind of like you said, Joe. Like the guy who might be the most surefire person or pick in this draft is probably going to be available at number 4.
Yeah.
Because of those top 3 quarterback needy teams. That's to me, that's the real intriguing part. And from what I'm seeing here, because of those top 3 picks being so quarterback needy, it looks like there's a lot of value in this draft to potentially move back. Like you said, Joe, I mean, I think we're in for a pretty crazy draft. I mean, last year last year we kind of thought maybe there would be some moves, but it really all just kind of fell into place as we expected. You know, Bryce Young, Stroud. I guess Will Anderson did. They did trade back in to get Will Anderson, the Texans, right?
Yeah, but
But
Daniel Jeremiah called that like a week before it happened for Slay. He was like, I think the Texans are going to do this.
It made sense, though. It made sense.
yeah, so I mean, I think this year is going to be a pretty wild, pretty intriguing draft, and it's exciting, man. I love the drama. And trust me, I hope my Raiders are one of those teams that move up and do something drastic. I really do.
Right.
But as far as Marvin Harrison goes, you know, what's not to love about a 6'4", 200+ pounder who just runs crisp routes and has big, strong hands and, and does it all.
Right. I mean, you're right. I mean, he is, I think in any other draft, last year, next year, whatever it may be, he's the number 1 overall pick. And it's easy to see why. And I'm going to go to you on this one, Kyle. Obviously, your ideal draft for the Bears is that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the number 1 overall pick in this draft. And I feel like that is a possibility. I also feel that based on what we just heard, if, say, the Commanders or the Patriots value Caleb Williams, you could trade back to 2 or 3 and get Marvin Harrison Jr. And then at 9, you could get a Joe Alt. And suddenly you have a solid left tackle, a top flight wide receiver to pair with DJ Moore, who I think is probably one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the league. He's a fringe number 1. And now you have all of that. Plus, all you need is a solid slot guy. And there are so many solid slot guys later around in this draft. Like, we'll talk about it later, but the number, or on a different thing, I've already brought him up multiple times. Malik Washington out of Virginia is the second highest graded wide receiver coming out of college, according to PFF. Like, he was the second highest. He had 1,400 yards out of this, like, as a slot receiver / running back hybrid, right? So just receiving, so good.
We'll throw in Hunter Renfrow when we make a trade.
No, I gotta have my Marvin. If I'm trading back, I need Marvin.
Yeah. So I mean, take the floor, Kyle. Explain to Bears Nation why Marvin Harrison Jr. should be the number 1 overall pick.
I see, and honestly, I don't want the Bears going any lower than 2. I don't trust Marvin Harrison Jr. I do not trust him to fall lower than 2. This is how good Marvin Harrison Jr. is. It does not matter how bad your team needs a quarterback. If you're not drafting Caleb Williams, you can easily make the argument to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. over any other one of these players, any of the quarterbacks. Like, Marvin Harrison Jr., surefire slam dunk. We've been talking about it. The way he moves, like, he glides in and out of routes. He runs smooth, and he is big. You're basically getting the second coming of, like, a Randy Moss. Like, these types of wide receivers that are just complete. And you don't need to overthink this. Like, he is good. He is damn good. He's going to be damn good. And to your question of will he be a top 10 receiver his rookie year? Yes. Yes, he will. I don't know if he'll be top 5. He will absolutely be a top 10 receiver his rookie year. He is that damn good. Game changer, like you said, didn't matter how many defenders were on him. He just got his yards anyway. I cannot speak highly enough about him. My ideal draft, trade back to 2 with Washington. Let them take Williams at 1st overall. Get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2. Get Joe Alt at 9, or Olu if Joe Alt goes a little bit earlier. How can you not love that offense? And then there are really no excuses. Then if Fields fails with Shane Waldron, Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Joe Alt, and all of that around him, then fine. Guess what? We probably have the Washington Commanders 1st rounder next year. Do you think they're going to be that good? Have you seen that offensive line? Did you see how gouged their defense got? Thank you for Montez Sweat. But I digress. Marvin Harrison Jr. should be the 1st overall pick, but get some capital out of it and still get Marvin Harrison Jr., the best player in this draft. Bears make out like bandits.
Exactly. And that's what I think, like, the people don't understand how crazy the first 10 picks of this draft can possibly be. Hell, the first 15 are going to be absolutely crazy because there was so much talent, so many people who have rated their boards all over the place that are going to happen. And just so I can be clear, PFF's grades for this season came out. Puka Nacua is a top 10 wide receiver. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is significantly better than Puka Nacua. Now, granted, Puka Nacua did play in an offense with another, future Hall of Famer in Cooper Kupp.
Sleep on Puka, man.
I know,
Don't
right?
Sleep on Puka.
So many people already slept on him. I mean, what, he got drafted, fifth round? I mean, come on, man. That's 120 plus picks, which means teams didn't sleep on him once, twice, 3 times. They slept on him almost 4 times till the Rams took him. So let's be fair. But we're going to keep this train moving here. We're going to talk about Drake May. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Drake May, he's 21 and a half years of age, 6'4", 230. He is the prototypical quarterback, and he looks a lot like Justin Herbert, who is that's his comp right there. Justin Herbert. A lot of people say, oh, he's like Josh Allen. He does not have the rushing ability of Josh Allen. He's mobile, but I definitely put him clearly in the Justin Herbert thing. Now, Justin Herbert did break a lot of records as a rookie passer, right? Passing yards were, for the first 3 years of a player, it's all Justin Herbert. The guy is dominant. That being said, he has consistently thrown to top 15, top 20 wide receivers his entire career. Okay, he's got one of the best receiving backs to play the game in Austin Eckler, and one of the best slot guys in Keenan Allen, and he's that good, right? I have some issues with Drake May. I've watched some tape on Drake May. I watched the breakdowns of Drake May. He is got a cannon. The guy is nothing but arm strength. All right. And you can see it in his deep grade. He throws the ball well. His no pressure grade's high. His pressure grade's high. And it's one of the higher stuff in this draft. He had a little bit of down year from last year in yards. We went from 42.93 down to 36.08. Was waiting for Tez Walker to get on the field to see what he could do. 24 was down from his 37. 9 INTs is up from his 17. So he's thrown a few more picks in the last 2 years. The big thing about Justin Herbert is that, and I've spoken to him multiple times, he doesn't have touch in his throw. He is 100% go all the time. Reminds me a little bit of Colin Kaepernick, where he just throws the ball as hard as he can all the time. Not everything can be 110 mile an hour fastball in the NFL. You need to have touch. And there's a play where I've seen a lot of people point this out, and he's got a linebacker and underneath coverage. He's rolling out to his right, which should be a strong, way for a righty to roll. He's got a receiver that's in a gap, right? He's got underneath bracket coverage, but there's a lot of space in there for him to fit that ball. All he's got to do is just kind of put it up over the linebacker, and he's good. Instead, throws a laser, gets picked, gets ran back. So he also has a tendency to run into pressure, where he will kind of feel pressure coming and he'll go to escape and just doesn't choose a good lane, which is why I say he's not like Josh Allen. Josh Allen, when he looks to escape, he gets to his area and he goes. Drake May, too often times, doesn't really look where he's going and will run into a defender and get sacked. Happened multiple times. So his pocket pressure needs to work a little bit. His footwork needs to work a little bit, and his touch and his throw needs to work a little bit. But all that aside, Drake May is the second best quarterback in this draft. And that's why he's the number 3 guy on BFS big board right now, okay? Just the physical tools alone are worth the risk. His accuracy numbers, they're a little lower than Caleb Williams at a 63.3. They're 65.7 the year before. He did play behind a very, very poor offensive line. And he is the only quarterback, or one of the only quarterbacks in this draft that didn't play, that's going to go in the first round probably, outside of Caleb Williams, who did not play with a top wide receiver. I think the only other one maybe JJ McCarthy, who Roman Wilson's been climbing up boards left and right. So Drake May, to me, is a conundrum because, and I say this because I feel that we rely so much on what a player can be that we sometimes forget what they are. And what Drake May is a guy who has a super high ceiling as long as he can learn how to do the intricate things of being a quarterback. Understand that learning that and being able to effectively apply that is not a guaranteed thing. Your biggest issue with a guy like Drake May as we look at some of the other numbers here, is the ability to do that. Now, if you look at his drop rate, he did have one of the higher drop rates in the NFL. His leading wide receiver only dropped the ball 3 times. That's Tez Walker, but Tez Walker only played like half a season. He didn't get in there right at the beginning of the year. I believe he missed a few games due to some transfer portal, NCAA shit. The thing you have to remember about Drake May is that this guy's a winner. And winning football games and having that fire and that ability to go out and just will a team to win is something to covet from an NFL prospect. I don't think it's enough because we saw the same thing from Justin Fields, and you see the Bears' problems right now and what they're going through. Would I take Drake May in the top 3? Yes. Would I be more comfortable taking Marvin Harrison Jr. or Caleb Williams? Probably.
Would you send a bunch of draft picks to move up to take Drake May?
Honestly, I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know at this point. I think that, when you think about Jaden Daniels and you think about Josh Allen and how some of these players, where they ended up, Lamar Jackson, these are the comps, Justin Herbert. The Chargers didn't really, if I remember correctly, they didn't move up to draft Justin Herbert. The Bills didn't move up to draft Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens did trade it back into the first round, if I remember correctly, to get Lamar Jackson at the end of the first round, right? Like,
32.
None of those guys were top 3 picks. That is where I see Drake May. I think Drake May is somewhere in that realm of quarterback, and people are going to be like, "What are you talking about?" And I just don't know. I feel like a lot of the way the quarterback breaks out is you have Caleb Williams, right behind him is Drake May, but I wouldn't say it's like on his ass. And then there's a gap. And then there's Jaden Daniels, and then Spencer Rattler is actually my number 4 quarterback right now. And then there's a gap, and then there's some mishmash of Penix, McCarthy, and Nix somewhere after that. And then there's everybody else. That's how I see the quarterback class. Drake May is the second best quarterback in this class, but I wouldn't say he's as close to Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams can throw to all 3 levels of the field. Drake May has issues with touch and the short area of the field because he throws the ball so damn hard. That being said, I'm going to kick it to you here, Kyle, and give me your breakdown on how you view a Drake May.
I view a Drake May as you are drafting the physical tools. That is exactly what you're drafting, because it's so hard to ignore. It seems every draft there's that one quarterback who's the prototype. The cannon arm, the 6'4", like 230 pounds. He is just like a quarterback. There's no way around
all
it.
The boxes, man.
He's checking all the boxes. The problem becomes the development, the learning. He is the best example in this draft of a quarterback needing to go to the right situation. He needs to go to a sound offensive coordinator. He needs to go to a relatively decent offense, and he will have success. You're going to still take your lumps early with a Drake May. He's going to have, I think he will have a turnover issue early. But I've also said that he is my favorite quarterback in this class because the things he can do well, he does phenomenally well. His deep ball is unfreaking believable. And like you said, he is a winner. He, in spite of a bad North Carolina team, willed them to wins. And you want to see that in a quarterback. You want to see that, some of those intangibles, that drive to win. So this is very much if he goes to the right spot, he can be very, very good. But it can easily blow up in a team's face in the same breath.
Oh, I 100% agree. Like I said, I think that Drake May is polarizing to me. I feel like he's got everything you want in a quarterback, checks all the boxes, but at the same time, is checking the hypotheticals, right? The tools boxes. Is that enough to go in the top 5? And I'm going to kick it to Ricardo, who has, seen this play out for the Raiders. I mean, we've seen them take physical freaks and college level guys who are top tier at the quarterback position who never worked out. Honestly, probably one of the biggest busts of all time at the quarterback position, and it happens to be in Raiders history. So, Ricardo, I mean, Drake May, man, what's your opinion on? What's your take?
I feel like that was a little slice right there.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, like, you got to.
I mean, it's the truth. It's the truth. And you know what? Funny enough, and just real quick side note, that's one of the knocks of Raider fans not wanting to move up to get a Jaden Daniels because of the LSU connection with Jamarcus Russell. Funny enough.
The funny thing is Jaden Daniels may be around because his stock's dropping, especially you look at the PF Big Board, as you're going to see as we go through this top 10 PFF's Big Board. Jaden Daniels is not going to be on it, people. So if you're waiting, like, where's Jaden? He's not coming.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
He's not coming.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Drake May goes, I mean, there is, he's got all the prototypical skills, the size, the strength, the athleticism. He's got the look of a quarterback, I mean, but, if I could give a tiny bit of pushback, I don't want to just give all the flowers in the world. With Drake, I mean, he's kind of left a small bit of bad taste in my mouth. It's a little bit of recency bias, even though you want to look at the entire body of work. They didn't, North Carolina in particular, didn't finish the year very well. He struggled to move the ball mightily versus NC State. This is NC State we're talking about. This wasn't, we weren't talking about freaking Michigan. We weren't talking about Alabama. We were talking about NC State, okay? And they struggled mightily to move the ball versus them. And, he put some numbers together there kind of towards the end of the game. I have them here. And he finished the game 22 of 38, 254 yards, and 2 TDs, 2 picks, So, not the brightest of games. You go back even further 1 week versus Clemson, a team that, kind of struggled to kind of find their way this year. 16 of 36, 209 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Pretty, not really jumping off the board for me. Not really, jumping, not really anything to get super, super excited about. You look at his numbers for the year. What was it? Like 36. You had it right now, Joe. What did he have? 3,600 yards, 24 TDs, 9 picks, I believe is what it was.
Yeah, 16 picks in the last 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I look at that number, 3,600 yards, 24 TDs, 9 picks. I mean, that just looks like Derek Carr numbers to me. I know it's not. I know it's a different amount of games, in the year. I'm not calling them that. I'm just looking at the number, and that's just kind of
the level of talent or of competition is higher in the NFL too. So I mean, let's be fair.
Yeah.
He didn't, like you said, he didn't play at LSU. He didn't play at Alabama or Georgia. He didn't go up against the SEC continuously. He played at North Carolina.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at the other guys. You look at Caleb. He did play in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 was good this year. Actually, I shouldn't even say that.
Yeah, it was
actually very good this year. But he had a down year, and he still had numbers that jump off the board to you. And I understand numbers aren't everything. There's context, that have to go behind those numbers, and there's film that you need to break down and you need to watch. So I mean, and that being said, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he's still a top 3 guy. If I'm just putting my Raider hat on right now, I've told all the Raider fans and people that I know, hey, I'll trade to number 3, and I'll take May or Daniels, whoever's there, and I'll be very happy with either of them. You see what I'm saying? But no, I mean, to kind of put a bow on it, I understand you got to look at the entire body of work, but to me, I don't know, man. It's just those last couple of games where I watched of him, and it wasn't really like, damn, Drake May is looking incredible.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, NC State was ranked 21 at the end of the year. So, I mean, they weren't bad, I mean, they're in the top 25, but I mean, it's still,
21, not 12, not
yeah,
2.
I get you. I get you. I'm with you on that, right? But you're right. It just didn't seem like he had that other gear, right? And when we talk about top, everybody wants that quarterback who can elevate talent around. And I don't think any of the guys in this draft technically fit that bill. I mean, realistically, the only quarterback you can arguably say maybe can do that right now in the NFL is Patrick Mahomes. And even him, he's got Travis Kelce, and the wide receiver core didn't do that good. They were actually one of the worst years offensively under Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, the way they looked. The numbers may not show it, but the gameplay sure did. They did not look as good as an offense as they had in years past. And, honestly, the defense is what got them this championship. And anyone who's shaking their head at that doesn't know football. And I've seen a lot of memes coming out about once they, the Chiefs didn't allow any of their opponents to score over 25 points. And everyone's like, oh, so the Super Bowl doesn't count for Patrick Mahomes then because the defense won it. Is that what I'm hearing? That's what we've been taught, right? If the defense does really well, the Super Bowl doesn't count.
Exactly,
and it's hilarious, right? It's just hilarious. But that's what everyone wants, right? You want that quarterback that's going to elevate the talent around them. And all we've seen from a lot of these guys is hey, they really can't right now. And, that's not saying that they won't be able to eventually. I mean, Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady day one, right? He sat for a year, let's be fair. And so, I mean,
we need to bring that back. Patrick Mahomes sat for a year. Like, the fact that people don't sit quarterbacks.
Jordan Love.
He blows, but Jordan Love for 3 years.
Just remember, okay, that I'm okay with sitting a quarterback. I am not okay with sitting a top 15 pick. Your top 15 pick is a day one starter, bar none.
Was Patrick Mahomes
there is no. If you do not think the guy you are taking in the top 15 is day one starter for the position you're taking him at, you should not draft him. That should be rule number one. GM training out the door first day. If you are drafting the first 15 picks and the guy you are taking is not a day one starter, you should not take him there. Rule number one.
Mm-hmm.
And seriously, think about it.
Kyle wants to say something.
I'm serious. Set him.
But I mean, like, why? But that's the thing, right? You think of the value of a first round draft pick. 5th year options in play, right? You're gonna mortgage 1 year on a guy who you're eventually gonna have to pay somewhere in the $20 million range if you pick up his 5th year option, depending on the position. And you want to mortgage a year? You can't afford to. Not in today's NFL. You have the guy, huh?
I don't know. The salary cap just went up.
The salary cap did just go up. But
I also see I see the side of it of, you're paying them to sit on the bench. Like, a first round contract in and of itself is good money, especially in the top 15. Yeah. And that money's on the bench. And I see that.
Right. And so my whole thing is like, and that's why I didn't say first rounds total. I said the top 15 picks. And before we get back into these top 10, understand that there's a reason that these picks are valued as high as they are, right? Especially, and hell, I'll even limit down top 5. Drake May is going to go in the top 5. Hell, top 3. And there is no way, if you draft Drake May top 5, top 3, whatever it may be, he says, you can't afford to. You can't. Because what you tell the entire world is, hey, we like the guy. We think he's going to be our starting quarterback, just not this year. You took him at 3. You took him at 2.
Yeah, the outrage would be insane. Yeah,
you get fired. You would get shit canned on the spot. And the worst part is
the Bears tried to sit Justin Fields, and they got annihilated.
Right.
The coaches got put on blast. They threw him in. The coaches freaking got fired, and now we're in this circus.
Right, and that's the thing, though. You think about it. Unless you show a unified front, organization from the top down. Hey, we took this guy. He needs some development, but we feel that with a year in the system for growth, he's our guy for the next 15. Okay. You felt so highly about him that what you could turn him into, and you didn't want to risk someone else getting him before you could pick again. But you got to come out and say it. The Bears didn't do that. Like I said, everyone got fired. We'll talk about the next guy on this list. And he is part one of two of why Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. And a little segue, Jaden Daniels is the only quarterback in this draft who is going to have two wide receivers go in the first round. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Every other quarterback that's going to go in the first round does not have a quarterback being drafted in the first round. Unless Bo Nix gets drafted, and then maybe Troy Franklin and Michael Penix gets drafted, and then Roma Dunze. But Jaden Daniels is the only one who has two wide receivers going in the first round. That is why I'm not as high on, and that with tape review on Jaden Daniels is why I'm not as high on Jaden Daniels as I am on some of the other quarterbacks. You can't understand why you don't know football.
Well, if I'm the Raiders, I have Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, so
yeah.
You can't argue that.
We're talking about fit, right?
Yeah. So Malik Neighbors, 20 and a half years of age, 6 foot, 200 pounds, runs a good route. The guy is a bona fide first-round pick. There are some people who think that he is better than Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't see it, but I do think he's going to be very, very good. Malik Neighbors, I saw a comp on that, and I can't remember who he was comped to, but it is a very, very good current NFL quarterback. I believe it was Stephon Diggs, if I remember correctly. Malik Neighbors' comp was Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
Stephon Diggs was drafted in the 4th round. Became a continual 1,000-yard guy. Malik Neighbors, that's the reason you're being viewed this highly. That and because of your numbers. So he put up 1,568 yards, 17.6 per catch, 14 touchdowns. He's a 1,000-yard receiver year before, 1,500-yard receiver this year. Man, coverage grade's outstanding. 5 drops, 6.6 yards after contact. Forced 30 missed tackles. Now, the only person I know of that I've seen in this draft who forced more missed tackles than Malik Neighbors is a guy who shares his first name. Malik Washington out of Virginia. Who I think
can't speak highly enough about that guy. He's awesome.
32 missed tackles or something like that. It's nuts. But he was another guy who lined up all over the field. He pretty much split his snaps right down the middle between out wide and in the slot. So he's got positional versatility there. 128 targets, 89 receptions. He is the guy. Now, the question I have is going to come down to some intangibles. He's a shorter guy. Still got good weight on him, good size, good weight on him at 200 pounds. So he can match up against those corners that are a little more physical. He's got the physicality to go with them. But he doesn't have sort of that wingspan that MHJ does, that catch radius MHJ does, which sort of hampers him in what he does. But at the end of the day, that's the number 2 wide receiver on the board. And I think that if you have a shot at Malik Neighbors, like you miss out on MHJ and you get Malik Neighbors, you are not unhappy. You're not going to bed upset because Malik Neighbors, everything I've seen about this man is next level. The guy is going to absolutely be a stud. I don't know if he's a top 10 guy right off the bat. I think he's top 15, top 20. He's not that far off of MHJ. That being said, he kind of doesn't have all the physical tools. Like we're talking about, the check boxes with Drake May. Malik Neighbors kind of misses on a little bit of the height at 6 foot. So he's a shorter guy. He does have the size to play outside and go up against his wide receivers, win physically, win press. I'll be interested to see sort of that, as he goes on in his NFL career, if maybe he does slide over into the slot and play more slot snaps than he does out wide, depending on the corners he's going up against. He's fast, runs crisp routes, always open, right? That was one thing about LSU's highlight reel is that, or just Jaden Daniels tape in general. Every time he threw a ball, these guys were wide open.
Wide ass.
And it's not because that, scheme or anything like that. No, it's because they absolutely can run routes. So Malik Neighbors is that guy for me. And I like him. I honestly think that there's an argument to be made that Malik Neighbors should be on this board one position higher. I think he's better than Drake May as a prospect. But then again, I'm also coming from the idea of what Malik Neighbors is to what Drake May is. Not what they can be, what they are. And to me, Malik Neighbors is a better prospect than Drake May. But Kyle, I'm going to go to you on this one, man. Obviously, you would love MHJ, but Malik Neighbors, he's not that far off, man. So give me your take on Malik Neighbors.
No, Malik Neighbors is nice. And I mean, like you said, the only thing I think that's the detractor between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. is the size. Like, Malik Neighbors runs good routes. He is fast, just doesn't have that 6'4" big build. And you worry about that going into the NFL. Like, you're going to be having to try and make those missed tackles against some pretty big free safeties and some pretty big corners that are going to want to hit you, and they're going to want to hit you hard. So that is the big thing that I think is the step down between a Marvin Harrison Jr. and a Malik Neighbors. But I say that, and I can never go against an LSU wide receiver. I just can't. Like, they are a wide receiver factory, and Malik Neighbors is going to be the next, iteration of that, if you will. Like you said, I don't necessarily know if he'll break into the top 10, top 15. I can totally see it, though, especially if he goes to an offense where he is in a more highlighted role. The question is, will he go to an offense where he's in a more highlighted role? Because if the Bears do trade down and end up going with a Malik Neighbors at wide receiver, but for example, I don't know what scenario that would happen in, but go with me on it. He's not necessarily the one. DJ Moore is still the one. And I look at that as he won't have necessarily as much production, but he will definitely grade out within the top 15.
I trade there for you, for an example, would be the Giants. 1 to 6.
Ooh.
That would be the opportunity to get Malik Neighbors. I know he's rated at 4, but I'm going to explain why with our next guy on the board. Yeah, I got a guy on our next guy we're going to talk about here is the reason why I think Malik Neighbors lasts till 6. But I'll let you continue.
No, yeah, he's an exciting prospect, and it goes to show you how deep wide receiver really is in this class. Like, there are a lot of players who can give you a good production beyond Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, we talk very highly of him, obviously, because he's going to be amazing. But it's not like you're like, oh, well, now we can't go wide receiver in the draft at all because we didn't get Marvin Harrison Jr. No, Malik Neighbors going to be a phenomenal talent.
Absolutely. And I said, it's hard to go against the LSU guys. It really, really is. I mean, I think the only one that I was like not sold on was Kayshon Boutte, and as we saw, it didn't work out. The guy had no spatial awareness, stepped out of bounds, only got 1 foot down, was still a college guy. But I also blame that a little bit on the wide receiver grooming and like sort of bringing those guys along in New England. So, but, Ricardo, I'll go to you on this one, man. So Malik Neighbors, honestly, Kyle and I obviously don't see a big gap between Malik Neighbors and MHJ. I don't think that, and I think there's some people out there who would disagree with us a little bit because of the size and things like that. But, do you think his size is going to be an issue when it comes to the NFL? Because, like I said, he is 200 pounds, but he is only 6 foot.
Yeah, I mean, at a wide receiver position, I mean, we've seen tons of undersized guys thrive in the league. I as far as his size goes, I mean, I don't really see it being a huge issue. I mean, he's going to be able to get open. It's really just a matter of going to the right fit, when it comes to Malik Neighbors. For me personally, though, I know we're going to get to this guy, but I'm actually higher. Me personally, I'm actually higher on Rome Odunze than than Malik Neighbors. You know,
I like Rome Odunze a
Rome.
lot.
I mean, Rome. You know, to be quite honest with you, I'm a little shocked that Malik is at number 4, and I understand the tape. I've seen the tape. I've watched him play many times, watching LSU, of course. But I'm just a tad bit higher on Rome Odunze. You know, 6'3", 215. 92 receptions, almost 1,700 yards, 13 touchdowns. I mean, that's just
Played over 900 snaps too, so he's got health.
Very reliable. Yep, very reliable guy. Kind of reminds me of a Devontae Adams. I know I've dropped his name in there, but you know, a little bit bigger body. He's actually a little bit taller than Devontae as well, but just able to run every single route, can beat you deep, you know, and can be that volume possession receiver for you. So for me personally, you know, I don't have anything bad to say per se about Malik Neighbors. I don't have any critique about him, about his size, and I'm sure he'll be just fine. LSU, as we mentioned, is the new wide receiver U.
Yeah.
So they know how to produce receivers, man. So I mean, it's a surefire pick. I wouldn't have any complaints. I wouldn't give the Bears a negative grade if they took him at 9 or something, anything like that. You know, you love the pick and you love that pairing with a DJ Moore, right? So I know we're talking about the Bears a lot, but
they're a critical part. I mean, we're talking about.
I mean, they're
got 2 top 10
this
picks,
literally,
so
yeah, this literally is their draft. They are the story of the draft. They have the entire draft in their hands because everything is really predicated on what they do. You know, and it's exciting, man, because that could just, you know, you look at what the Texans did last year, you know, exactly. And, you know, from worst to first, you know, and that it could be you if you play your cards right, Kyle. So I would get excited about that, man.
It's going to be a fun draft no matter what.
Oh,
it's
yeah, for sure.
I remember when the Raiders had 3 first-round picks and we completely botched 2 out of 3 of them. But we didn't have 2 top 10 picks. That is just, man, that's
like we were just giving Poles his flowers. You know, the guy is drafting amazing. And be sure if he trades out in number 1, the Bears are going to have 2 first-round picks for the foreseeable future. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be. And if you want to talk about
never going to not.
Yeah, he's just never going to not. He's going to do the opposite what the Rams done. Always have 2 first-round picks instead of never having a first-round pick. It'll be great. But I mean, I like what you said about Rome Odunze. And like I said, we're going to talk about Rome Odunze later on in this in our rankings, right? We're doing the top 5 right now. He will be in the top 10 already. I'm going to do a little preview on that right now. He's sitting at 8. So we will talk about him. But yeah, Rome Odunze to me, I've heard that his comp right now to a lot of people is another LSU guy, Jamar Chase. That's what a lot of people see in a Rome Odunze. I think he's a little bigger than Jamar Chase is, but that's what a lot of people compare him to because he does a lot of the similar things. You know, he can run the deep routes, run the short routes, just a reliable pass catcher, can turn anything into a home run ball if you give him a shot, right? So I do agree. I think I'm actually higher on Rome Odunze than Malik Neighbors, but I would not be. Bro, if I went to bed at the end of draft night and my team had Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors as a first-round draft pick, I'm sleeping like a baby. Yeah. I'm A-okay with that, unless you know we already had like an all-star wide receiver core, and then I'm like, why the fuck didn't we take a tackle or some shit, you know? But I mean, I'm not upset with that, right? I'm not upset with that. But we're going to talk about this next guy, and this is probably one of the few top 5 guys who's probably not getting picked in the top 5, and unless my theory is correct. I think Brock Bowers could be a Charger in the first round. I think you pair Brock Bowers with Quentin Johnson, Keenan Allen. You know, they get all those guys. They get the band back together. You give them Justin Herbert, new head coach. And I think
that's what I'm afraid of.
Brock Bowers is a Charger. And you give Justin Herbert that extra safety blanket. John Harbaugh is going to love this kid for sure. Right? The Harbaugh brothers love their tight ends. No doubt about it, right? And pause. They love their tight ends. Like a toy guy. You know what I'm saying? But Brock Bowers is going to be that guy in San Diego, or I say San Diego. I'm still upset they left San Diego. They're LA.
They're basically
or,
still the
I
San
get it.
Diego Chargers.
Yeah, send their ass back.
Yeah, they're as CISO would say of the Clippers, the basement team.
Yeah, them and all their 20 fans can get together and
Yeah, exactly. But Brock Bowers
Rent
in
a
that
bus.
offense makes perfect sense to me. And so we're going to go ahead and jump into his grades. 21 years of age. He's coming off a major injury, but he's 6'4". You know, he's 240. He is a tight end. He's exactly what we want in a tight end, right? He just plays a good. He's the best tight end in the draft. And I know it's not saying a lot, but to be the best tight end in the draft and pretty much on every single big board, you're a top 10 guy. That tells you how good of a receiving talent he is. He did have a down year this year. Like I said, he's coming off a major injury. He only played 10 games. But, I mean, you look at his yards. He had 882 in 2021, 942 in 2022, and he was on pace. I mean, he played 5 less games and had 717 yards. 13 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. The guy is a machine. Only 3 drops, reliable, average, yards after reception, 8.7. His contested catch rate for the size he is kind of low, but run blocks well. His drop rate's not that high. He receives well. He runs good routes. He's got one of the better, yards per route run at the tight end position. And, he forced 18 missed tackles. That's second at the position. Your tight end is elusive in space. Holy shit, that's great, right? 7th in yards after catch. This is the kind of guy that you want on your team. And as far as I'm concerned, Brock Bowers deserves to be a top 5 pick. If there was a team in the top 5 that actually needed a tight end outside of the Chargers, he would go there. Now, where I've seen him go a lot, and this is even more terrifying to me, is that he drops out of the top 10 and ends up a Cincinnati Bengal.
Oh my God.
And could you imagine they somehow keep Boyd, Chase is healthy, Burrow's healthy, and then you just slap a Brock Bowers in there for good measure. And suddenly
Nasty.
the Bengals are...
They're my Super Bowl pick if that happens.
Yeah, it's nuts, right? Like, it's
That'd be
absolutely
nasty.
crazy. And so, I mean, Brock Bowers is probably the guy on the big board who goes up and down the most. There are mocks I've ran where he goes number 5. There are mocks I've ran where he goes 17 to the Bengals. There are mocks I've ran where he goes somewhere in the 20s to like Green Bay or some shit. Like, it's wild that he has so much flow, and it's because of the value of the tight end position, the needs of the teams, and where they view him. I think a lot of the answers or a lot of the questions are going to be answered with his health, how much he's able to do, and what he's able to do at the combine, and what he's able to do and how much he's able to do at his pro day. If all of those things are exactly what we expect Brock Bowers to be and do, if he goes outside of the top 10, it's a travesty.
Yep.
Absolutely just terrible. That being said, I do not see a way he goes past 5 if he does everything exactly what we think he's going to do. I think him on the Chargers is great. I think him on the Bengals is even more terrifying. And I just think any team that has a question at the tight end position, if you let Brock Bowers go past you, you have officially fucked up. But I'm going to go ahead and start with you here, Ricardo. You know what it's like to have a very, very good tight end on your football team. I know what it's like to have a very, very good tight end on my football team. The Bears, for Kyle, have had great tight ends throughout history. I mean, one of the greatest tight ends / coaches and the guy, the Mike.
The prototype tight end. The original prototype tight
Yeah.
end. Don't forget it, people.
Yeah, the Mike Ditka, and you had Waller. I obviously lived through the Gronk days as a Patriots fan, and in the Benjamin Watson days. I love Benjamin Watson. I still think that he has probably one of the most highly, like, if you segue, if you want to show a player what effort looks like on a football field, show Benjamin Watson on the opposite side of the field running down Champ Bailey. And that's all you need to see. But yeah,
Hall of Fame Champ Bailey.
Yeah. So having all that knowledge, Ricardo, do you think Brock Bowers is a top 10 pick?
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it any better, Joe. I think he absolutely is going to be a Charger. And that just scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, you'd hate that as a Raiders fan,
Because
wouldn't you? Not only do you not get a quarterback, the Chargers get a tight end, and you're sitting there like, I got O'Connell.
oh God, dude.
I'm
I
a
like
Purdue
Aiden,
fan.
dude.
I love Aiden O'Connell. I love AOC, bro.
The stash is awesome.
AOC, yep.
Bro.
Yep. Favre
Mustache,
from
man.
Super Troopers, man.
Oh my god, man.
No, man. Yeah, if you kind of break down the Chargers roster, I mean, you kind of look at their needy positions. You know, running back, they're not going to draft a running back at 5. You know, they're probably going to address that in free agency, whether it be Eckler or, you know, there's rumors of Saquon Barkley going over there, which, oh, God. You know, that's
Pain, the nightmares you
God,
must be
that's
having,
rough.
man.
Whew, that's rough, man. But no, I mean, you look at the NFL, the landscape. I mean, this year, and you know, we all know that the tight end is your quarterback's safety blanket. You know, and you look at the teams that made deep runs this year. You know, you had Sam Laporta. Look what he did for, you know, in his rookie year for Jared Goff.
Number 6 on PFF's tight end rankings.
There you go. See, you know, we saw Travis Kelce just absolutely turn back the clock and be classic Travis Kelce. And you saw what you know, George Kittle, and then the lack and think about this, the lack of production that George Kittle had in the Super Bowl, you know, and that hindered their offense. There was a whole portion of their offense completely gone because for some weird, odd reason, George Kittle had 2 catches for 4 yards in the Super Bowl, you know? And, I mean, that's neither here nor there, but we're talking about the Chargers. Justin Herbert has never had a top-tier tight end like that. You know, he's had Hunter Henry maybe his rookie year.
Yeah, like 1 year.
For maybe 1 year, Gerald Everett, right? Gerald Everett, you know. Solid dudes, you know, but a guy who, you know, has the potential of a Brock Bowers, which literally it almost seemed like anytime you turned on a Georgia game the last 3 years, that is the name that you heard more than any single name out there is, oh, look who it is. It's Brock Bowers. Oh, and who else? You know, 3rd and 7. Who else came through? Brock Bowers. You know, touchdown Georgia. Who was it? Brock Bowers. So, I mean, I think honestly, we're talking about fit. You know, do the Chargers have to address other needs? You know, their line, their secondary, and other stuff like that. They do, but I mean, they probably can take care of that stuff in free agency. Plus, there isn't. I don't think there's anybody that is coming out this year that is that high of a D tackle or edge rusher. You know, maybe Latu out of UCLA, but to go number 5, I mean, I don't really see it. But I think the fit is there, and you know, if they announce that pick and it's Brock Bowers, I'm going to have some nightmares because to have to deal with the, you know, having to have dealt with Travis Kelce for so many years with, you know, Patrick Mahomes, that combination, and then now you got to deal with the Justin Herbert with Brock Bowers and Jim Harbaugh. I mean, it's God, it's scary.
Yeah, at that point, the Raiders' draft strategy totally changes. They draft nothing but corners and linebackers the rest of the way. Just nothing but coverage guys to make sure that they can hold these guys as much as possible. So, I mean, I get it. Brock Bowers, to me, like, let me go ahead and just run this down. Like, you named off Travis Kelce, Kittle, and Sam Laporta. Allow me to give this some context, all right? 3 of the 4 conference championship teams, including both Super Bowl teams, had tight ends in the top 5. In fact, the 49ers, which had number 1 at George Kittle, the Chiefs at number 2 with Travis Kelce, and the Ravens at number 3 with Mark Andrews. Those are your top 3 tight ends. That tells you how valuable the tight end spot is in the NFL. Sam Laporta was number 6. Behind the only 2 guys ahead of him were Mercedes Lewis with the Bears, TJ Hawkinson with the Vikings.
Dude, fucking Mercedes Lewis.
Right.
I fucking loved Mercedes Lewis this season,
Right.
this last year.
Those are the next 3.
UCLA Mercedes Lewis.
UCLA Mercedes Lewis. He's still
Didn't
playing.
he come out in like 2005?
So old.
He's 39. He's actually gonna be 40 years soon. But that's what we're saying.
Dude, that's
Right?
why I loved Mercedes Lewis this season.
That's awesome, man. Hats off to Mercedes Lewis.
And you think about like how the Vikings were in the playoff hunt, you know, and we were like, oh, they don't have a quarterback, blah, blah, blah. The run game sucks, every this stuff. The Vikings had 2 tight ends in the top 10. They had Josh Oliver at 9, and they had TJ Hawkinson at 3. So the tight end spot is a viable spot to invest early draft capital in if you can get that type of guy, because it automatically gives your team a chance. Because like you said, it's a security blanket. That's your chain mover. That's your 3rd and 7. I need a physical guy to go out there and catch through contact. I need a guy who can break a tackle in the short yardage and turn it upfield for a first down. Right? That and your slot receiver, those are your 2 chain movers. Brock Bowers is that guy. And honestly, if you're a team that does not have that, but you have like those sort of expectations, and FYI, Kyle, honestly, the Bears almost made it as having 2 top 10 tight ends as well, but Cole Kmet was number 11. So sorry.
Cole Kmet had a great year.
He did have a good year. So, I mean, but that's what we're talking about.
Mercedes Lewis.
Mercedes Lewis. Fucking nuts, right? Like 41 receptions. He had 41 receptions.
Dude, he was such a good blocker for some reason too.
Or was that 41 receiving? Was that receiving snaps? He had 41 receiving snaps, and he had 64 pass block snaps, 225 run block snaps at almost 40 years old.
There it is. That's why.
267 nuts.
He can get physical down in the trenches,
right?
And I think if they if the Chargers can like unlock something like that, if presuming that Brock Bowers does go there, God, that'd be a force to be reckoned with. To be honest with you, that offense would just be scary.
As good as the Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates days. Yeah. Because if you think that's what that offense was built on. They had LaDainian Tomlinson, Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates, Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert, Brock Bowers.
They never won anything.
Well, they ran into Tom Brady and the Patriots the entire time.
I understand.
There's a lot of AFC teams that didn't win a lot of shit during those years.
It just brings me joy to see the Chargers just stumble on themselves.
Another segue here real quick. Tom Brady single-handedly put the eviction notice in San Diego for the Chargers, because if the Chargers had won a Super Bowl in San Diego, they never would have left. But they consistently ran into the fucking Patriots, and like that's why Tom Brady's the GOAT in my book, is because not only did he win all the Super Bowls, has all the records, he also had teams just put the fucking tombstone in him. He did it for the Raiders, sent them to fucking Las Vegas. He did it for the Chargers, sent them to LA. I mean, hell, he moved the Rams out of St. Louis.
Don't forget we started the legacy.
You did.
Thank you for that, by the way. Don't forget we started the legacy with the Tuck rule. Don't forget that.
But Kyle, speaking of prototypical tight ends, this guy is that guy. And you, like I said, you had the original prototypical tight end. You had Mike Ditka as a Bear. And so give me your breakdown on Brock Bowers and just where you see him going and what he could be. Because honestly, I think that Ricardo and I are both on the same page. He is a top 10 tight end in this league next year. I think I would argue if he goes to the right situation with the right quarterback, he's going to be top 5 in the tight end spot.
Oh, absolutely. And the Mike Ditka is the exact reason. I was a very big Brock Bowers fan for his entire college career. So I got to watch him be the best tight end in college football for 3 years. Yes, I understand the injury concerns. He was still unbelievable. And I think he's going to have a great pro day. He is, like you said, he has shown that he is the prototype tight end. Unbelievable blocking, unbelievable hands, runs great routes, physical. He's everything you could possibly want in a tight end talent. And you ask what he could be, he can be a George Kittle. He can be a Travis Kelce. He is that good. Don't overthink this with it. If your team needs a tight end, don't overthink this, people. Brock Bowers is that guy. He's going to be good fast. He's unequivocally one of my favorite draft picks in this entire draft. I love Brock Bowers. Can't speak highly enough about him. The one thing, and like you said, we have to see how he does at the combine. We have to see how he does at the pro day. I think he will do very well. If he does not, then you can start asking, okay, what's going on with the injury? You know, you can start asking those questions. But beyond that, he is so damn good. Surefire pick. And like, whew, if he goes to the Bengals, are you kidding me? Like, I've just been sitting thinking about that. That would be, and if they, assuming they franchise tag T. Higgins, that Bengals offense is insane.
Oh, man. Could you imagine? Oh my God.
You would have like 3,000-yard pass catchers on that team.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you that right now.
With Joe Burrow's arm talent, that is terrifying to me. I mean, honestly, like I said, Brock Bowers is probably one of the more polarizing players because he can go up and down this board. I think the only other one that's more polarizing right now to me is maybe Jaden Daniels because of the need at quarterback. And you talk about up and down the board, it's going to come down to who's willing to take a risk on him. And I feel the same way with Brock Bowers, the injury, but at the same time, I think there's teams that don't have a huge need at tight end who could be sneaky teams that draft him early because he is that good. I think that there's a lot of teams out there that could look at him and be like, that's the guy. We can use that guy right there. And it's just going to come down to those numbers and sort of the need, which is honestly kind of the bummer about some of these players and where they're going to go is because they're going to be, kind of dealing with all that stuff. Sorry about that, watching dogs, and they're getting a little rowdy because I've been locked in this room for as long as I have been. So you know how it is. But yeah, I don't know, man. This draft is going to be crazy. And just going over the top 5 guys that we went over, this is honestly, we're going on an hour and a half now. That tells you how good they can be and like sort of the range of what we're looking at here and how wild this draft is going to be. It's going to be insane, Kyle.
This is a fun class.
Yeah, and I'll let you close it out, Kyle. You go ahead and give it, your stuff here and, give a big shout out to everybody. Obviously, I'm still recovering from a surgery. I've talked too much.
There you have it, folks. No. And like you said, this draft is just plain interesting. And we're going to honestly have way more draft content. Make sure you are subscribed to the Gridiron YouTube page. We are still a House Call affiliate. Of course, we are just making sure that our content gets to you football fans. With that being said, it has been so great hanging out with y'all in the Gridiron segment. That's Ricardo. That's Joe. My name is Kyle. We'll see you for part 2 of this top 10 draft prospects video. Until then, peace.
Remember, folks, this is just regular season predictions. The Rangers starting rotation is worrisome to me.